Welcome to the video. This video is about my first flight, my maiden flight with the Argus ROC VTOL, and also maiden flight with the Rush 1.3 gigahertz 4 watt VTX. Now, I'm a long range pilot. I've never flown a VTOL before, and I'm getting a bit old, so I wanted an aircraft that I could easily take off and land. Not that I have a problem landing, but takeoff sometimes can be problematic. There's a close-up view of the Rush 1.3 gigahertz VTX. Now I've got this set up to run at 1 watt. It is capable of going to 4 watts, but I've just set it up for the maiden flight at 1 watt using the RunCam camera as well, and I've mounted the camera a little bit too far back and you can see the antenna in the flight footage, unfortunately. That's the battery that I am using, and I must shout out to Painless 360. I wasn't sure what battery would fit into this VTOL, and I wanted a fairly high capacity one, as I want long range flights. So Painless sent me a link to this battery which he used. That's the way that it goes into the aircraft. It is wider than it is higher, the battery bay. This has to go all the way back. It's very nose heavy, this aircraft, maybe because of where I've mounted a few things. That's a front mount that comes with the PDF file, and that's one that I've designed myself, but that's too long, so I'm going to have to redesign that. Here we are at the flying field. There is the aircraft. This is my setup. This is a X2 Air with a ready-made RC receiver, and down on the ground I have my Eagle Eyes, Eagle Tree Eagle Eyes, running a DVR, the goggles as well, and the TX16S using Dragon Link 433, and the antenna is a 5-element Yagi. I always use a Yagi. One thing I can't stand is losing the link. Not that you ever do with Dragon Link. And that's the direction we're going to be flying in, to the west. Okay, that's me, the old bloke there, and we're ready to take off for the first flight. And there's quite a few things that are not quite right, and I'll point them out in this video as we go. This is where I normally fly reasonably range from. Taking off, look at the amp draw, getting up to 20 amps as I'm climbing. For my very first transition, I wanted to make sure I was a bit high, just in case it came crashing down into the ground like I've seen some other VTOLs do. And now for the transition. There we go. Look at that, beautiful. Just a little bit of a yaw to the left, but away it goes. That was one of the problems I noticed, that the antenna is looking forward, and because I went high, it wasn't receiving the signal very well. So that's something to look out for in future. But I didn't have the goggles on at the time. They were on the top of my head. And here we go. Now, pointing out the first problem immediately is that I thought I had ground speed. In the center to the left, you'll see the speed saying around 70 kilometers there. I had it set up, I thought, for ground speed and airspeed, the lower one being airspeed, but it turns out that both are set to airspeed. And having flown FPV now for, what is it, 16 years, I can't believe it's that long, but 16 years of FPV, I've become very used to ground speed. When I used to fly hang gliders, and I did that for 20 years, and gliders and even light aircraft, always used airspeed, but ever since I've been flying radio control models, FPV, I've become very used to ground speed, and I must admit I got a little bit disoriented on this flight with no ground speed. Anyway, we are flying west. We're flying directly into a wind that's around about 15 kilometres an hour. It could even be at times nearly up to 20 kilometres an hour. And this thing is handling it very, very well. I knew when I saw videos of this aircraft that it was fast. Most of my other aircraft are not fast, and look at that, there's one of the problems. I slowed up too much and it went into VTOL mode again. Something I really do need to address. We'll talk about that later. But here we are flying a part of the world I live very close by, and I fly this with my friend as often as we can. And it looks flat, it looks very flat. But in fact there are 3 hills. They're not really that tall, but they do impact the video signal over distance. And normally around the 7 to 8 kilometre mark you start to notice a little bit of signal degradation. So normally you have to climb a little bit, but I follow the height rule very strictly here. Never fly over 120 meters, 400 feet. So always keep it below. Today I'm flying higher than normal. I normally would be flying along here at about 45 meters instead of 80. But it's a maiden flight, and I just needed a little bit of room just in case, you know, a nasty tip stall happened or something like that. Although with it automatically going into VTOL mode when I slow up, that's not going to happen. You can see the amp draw down at the bottom left, 5.5 amps. That's very, very good. I know it's running 6S. That's the first 6S battery I've ever used. I've always run 4S. But it's recommended you use 6S, and with the VTOL component I can see why. Although once it's flying, it would run fine on 4S. Unfortunately you can see the antenna in the camera shot here. And also the image is not as crisp as I would normally like. I know you guys who fly digital are probably saying, oh, look at that. That's standard definition, that's terrible. But in the goggles, I don't find it too bad. But this is a NTSC camera, unfortunately. So you're only getting 420 vertical lines compared to 480 compared to 560 with PAL. But I'm just a little bit short on cameras at the moment. I prefer the Foxeer T-Rex. I think that is a superb camera, and it really does make the video look a lot crisper, a lot better. In fact, have a look at some of my other videos on the channel, my recent videos where I'm using the T-Rex camera, and I think it's damn good for analog SD footage. So far on this flight, it's a maiden flight, and I know some of you would be saying, why am I going out so far on the maiden flight? But for me, just flying around in circles just doesn't cut it. And my friend and I have a golden rule: when we fly this site, it is compulsory, and I do say compulsory, to fly to 10 kilometers. So that's what the plan is today, even though this is my very first flight with this aircraft. If there was any problems, I would have picked it up in the first few minutes. I'm happy with the way it's going, except for it switching into VTOL mode. you notice there are some puffy clouds starting to appear. Now, they are definitely thermals. It is winter at the time of this film, so they're not ultra strong, but there are thermals, and I can feel it. I'm starting to notice that aircraft climbing and then also descending, and when it starts descending I pull back on the stick a little bit, and that's when it started to slow up and go into VTOL transition. Now I'm going to have to do some researching on Argus Pilot to find out where I can change that setting to have a lower tolerance, or to be able to turn it off. I've been flying 16 years. I've had aircraft that tip stall. I've been able to, well, except for one of them, I've been able to pull out of them and recover, knowing what to do with the rudder first, stick center, rudder to correct the spin, and then pull back on the stick slowly. And but I can understand why this feature is added in for people who are new. They don't want you crashing the model. It'll go automatically into VTOL mode and save you, and I think that's a good thing. But for someone like me, I don't need that interference. Now, I was just thinking maybe if I ran it in manual mode instead of fly-by-wire, that may not happen. I don't know. If anyone knows a little bit about it, please do comment. Now you can see we're approaching 7 kilometers. We've climbed a little bit. As I said, the thermals tend to be taking me up and down, and not having flown this aircraft for very long, I haven't really got the feel for the elevator as well. It's not as precise as I expected, but that's probably due to it being a V-tail. Making some movements with the elevator, and it's not responding as exactly as I would have expected with my other aircraft. But you can see the white clouds starting to build up. In fact, later in the day they become a lot darker. Didn't rain, but there is a cold front moving in. But this is remarkable at the speed it's flying at, into a wind, and we're coming up on 8 kilometers. Video is very good. I've never used this transmitter before. I always use the ready-made RC 12 volt VTXs, and I love them, but 12 volts is the problem. This flight controller with the Argus ROC puts out 9 volts on the VTX rail. I don't know why. Someone can please explain to me why on the VTX rail 9 volts. Oh, there we go again with the transition, and I've pushed the stick forward and increased the power to get out of that. There we go, back into normal flight. But yeah, 9 volts didn't suit me at all because of the ready-made RC or the Chinese 1.3 gig VTX is all being 12 volts and fairly sensitive. If the voltage drops a little bit too much below 12, they do start to give you no video. So there's not a huge tolerance there, and running it on 9 volts was not possible. Now I could have hooked up a Beck. Those who know me well know I don't like Becks. Running additional equipment, it means additional failure. But anyway, I used the Rush because it's got a variable voltage input. Now you can see we're nearly at 10 kilometers and the video is starting to go off a little bit. Now I'm going to climb a little bit because I know exactly what it is. It's the Fresnel zone being violated because of those hills, and I said as you get further out you start to notice it. So that's about as high as I get. Normally if we just get to 400 feet the video is usually clear, but it just shows you at this location how those little hills, about the 6 kilometre mark they start, about 5 kilometre mark, they over distance do impact on the signal. So this is not a very good RF spot to fly. You can see in the top left the RSSI has dropped from 100 down to 85. As I flatten out, it'll sort of go up, back up to 91 or 94 there. So even the Dragon Link 433 is showing it's being slightly affected by those little hills in between. And you know, once I get back to 9 or just under 9 kilometers, you'll see the video start to improve. But I've been out to 70 kilometers. It's my longest flight, and I've had no problems with the link or with the video, although after 55 kilometers I did have to change to the higher gain Gatling antenna. The X2 Air gave out at about 55 because, again, I'm staying under 400 feet. If I was to climb higher it wouldn't be a problem, but I won't break that rule. So here we are on the way back, and you can see, I think you can see that the ground is moving past a lot quicker than it was going out because we're flying downwind, and this is where I missed the ground speed indicator. I've become so used to it after 16 years of flying. Most pilots would say, no, airspeed is so important, but I must admit I rarely ever stall an aircraft. I just don't know what it is. I'm not doing manoeuvres when I fly FPV that ever put me into a stall situation. Being a sort of long range guy, I'm not doing aerobatics, I'm not throwing it all over the place. So there you go. So yeah, let's just talk about a few of the problems I've noticed on this flight. The RunCam logo is in the bottom middle because I forgot to hook up the menu card to it to turn that RunCam menu off. So apologies there, it's something on my list but I failed to do. The ground speed is not showing, it's showing 2 lots of airspeed. Apart from that, everything else seems to be okay. When I landed, it shows, I think, that I've used about 2,100 milliamps, 2.1 amps, but when I put it on charge the battery had actually used 3, so I need to make some changes there. So it looks like I've got to go into Argue a mission planner and add a ground speed to try and change that transition to VTOL mode when it slows up too much. And I need to add a few other things as well, like wind speed, where the wind's coming from. That would be, it's an indicator I normally have on the top right, but I failed to put it on this time. And fix up the amp consumption. There's a setting there, I forgot what it is, but I know you can make adjustments to it to change that. But as you can see, we've been out to 10 and we've only, according to this, used 1.7 amps. I'm sure that probably would be reading just over 2 if it was correct now, but it's still very efficient, very good. I've been having to give it a little bit more power than I would have normally because of that inadvertent transition into, there it goes again. See, I slowed up too much. So that is something that I will have to work on. Okay, just so far I'm loving it. I'm loving the aircraft. Painless 360 has done a couple of videos on this VTOL, and I suggest everyone who's interested go and watch him. He's excellent at VTOLs and he does a very good job on those videos. As I said, I've never flown a VTOL before. I'm a long range guy and I want to use this as a medium range aircraft, just so I can take off from my own property. I live on a little bit of a farm, but not good for taking off and landing. But this will be superb for that. But I've seen a few videos online and they're all using either DJI 04 or they're using Avatar digital systems, and I haven't seen anyone do any distance, and that disappoints me. I just wanted to show people that this is more than capable of doing some distance with, oh, dare I say it, better radio gear. I've been using 1.3 gigs. Oh, well, a year after I started, I was very, very disheartened with 5.8. And once I started using 1.3, I just fell in love with it. I have my amateur radio license, so I've got no restrictions on power. And this frequency that I'm using is within the band that I'm entitled to use. So I hope you enjoy this video, but the best is yet to come for a bit of a laugh, because it's when I come into land, which is not long away. I said to my friends, I said, I'm not going to fall for the trap when I go into the transition that I think I'm still flying a VTOL when I've transitioned into fly-by-wire A, and people hold the right stick forward and dive into the ground. No, I said, I'm not falling for that trick, but I did fall for something similar when I came into land. It all happens very quickly, so I will explain it now. I fly behind where I took off from because of the wind blowing. I wanted to point the aircraft into the wind, and I slow up and it automatically transitions into VTOL mode, and then it just sits there. And I kept saying to myself, well, I've dropped the throttle, what's going on? It's not descending. And I didn't realise I dropped the throttle all the way to 0. And then I realised, oh, I've got to switch it into Q loiter. I've got to take it out of fly-by-wire A back into Q loiter. I did that, and of course it fell like a stone because I had no throttle set. So I rapidly applied throttle, forgot to take the goggles off, couldn't estimate my vertical speed, and of course hit the ground just a little bit hard and then bounced 3 times, as you'll see. So it'll finish soon, the video. Thanks for watching, but have a laugh as I come into land something that caught me out. But I thoroughly recommend this Argus ROC. Here we go, the transition started, and I'm thinking, oh good, we're in VTOL mode, but look at it, it's just sitting there, nothing's happening. No, what? My mind is going, what's going on? What's going on? How do I get this thing down? Throttle is at 0. Now I'll switch it in a second. There it goes, Q stabilized, falling like a stone, power on, but not enough. And here we go, bang. Bang. You've got to laugh, haven't you? What a silly old fool. Anyway, my wife's saying, what went wrong? And I said, yeah, pilot error. Anyway, that's it. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't subscribe. Please don't subscribe, but like the video. Bye for now.